Welcome to the Explainer. So let's just jump right in, because today we are tackling a concept that is so massive, so completely perspective altering, that it's literally going to shatter your traditional assumptions about how the universe actually began. We're looking at this totally fascinating framework called the paradox of static infinity. And honestly, we're going to use it to just completely reimagine the very origins of reality itself. So ask yourself this: was the universe a conscious choice, or was it a mechanical inevitability? Now, for thousands of years, the familiar narrative has kind of been that a creator essentially flipped a switch, right? Made a decision and said, let there be light. But what if that's fundamentally backward? What if creation wasn't some optional choice at all, but something that absolutely had to happen just because of the laws of infinite pressure? We are setting the stage for a massive paradigm shift here, guys. All right, let's dive into part one, the paradox of fullness. To really wrap our heads around this paradox, we've got to visualize a highly abstract concept, but one that is completely grounded in absolute physics. The source material defines the starting point as the Mulu, which translates to absolute fullness. It's defined as an absence that contains literally everything that is, has never been, and cannot ever be. I know, that sounds like a massive brain twister, but think of it like this. This absolute absence is so incredibly dense, it's packed completely solid with the immense weight of unrealized potential. It's essentially an infinity of everything that isn't. But right here is where we hit the core paradox. Static infinity cannot maintain perfect symmetry indefinitely. The crucial point to remember here is that even infinity has mechanical properties. It's not just some magic state that can sit there forever completely unchanged. When a system reaches absolute density, when it's literally as full of absence as it can possibly be, that density inevitably creates internal structural friction. Which brings us to part two, the limits of infinite density. To really understand exactly what goes down when that absolute fullness becomes structurally impossible to contain, we have to look at the mechanics of thermodynamics. It's a chain reaction. It starts with absolute fullness, the Mulu, but as we just talked about, that absolute density naturally sparks internal friction. The system is so incredibly packed in on itself that it starts generating uncontainable pressure. And finally, that pressure just builds and builds and builds until the energy needed to compress the Mulu completely exceeds its structural integrity, which forces a phase transition. Basically, something absolutely has to give. And this perfectly illustrates exactly why it has to give. The pressure acts as an active force against its own boundaries. Just think about it for a second. For the Mulu to stay 100% pure absence and never ever leak, it would need a flawless, infinite force field to constantly suppress the potential of actually being. But once total absolute fullness is reached, that internal pressure violently pushes outward from within. The structural integrity is officially breached. Moving on to part three, the universe as a leak. So, what actually happens when an infinite system can no longer hold itself together? Well, this brings us to a really breathtaking twist and a brand new term for us, the Cesset. The text defines the Cesset as the puncture, or the leak. It is a structural relief valve. It's an inevitable phase transition. The source material brilliantly compares this event not to some conscious being deciding to create something, but to the pure mechanical necessity of water turning into steam when the pressure and temperature changes. It's simple, undeniable physics applied on an infinite scale. We are no longer looking at our reality as some grand, deliberately designed architecture, but as a necessary exhaust. And that idea fundamentally redefines our reality. Presence is essentially a tiny, highly unstable bubble of thinness that formed specifically to absorb the overflow of absence. Just let that sink in for a moment. The infinite density of the Mulu had to displace its excess force somewhere, anywhere, into a pocket of less. This totally reframes existence itself. We aren't a magical, optional addition to the universe. We are quite literally a pressure drop. The source material uses this strikingly profound, almost tactile metaphor to describe it. It says, we emerged as the cooling sediment of an infinite pressure finally finding a place to vent. I mean, it's an awe-inspiring thought, isn't it? We're the sediment. We are the exhaust of infinity, finally catching its breath. Okay, let's wrap this up with part four, mechanical necessity of creation. You might be wondering, why does all of this mechanical talk actually matter to us? Well, because it completely alters our fundamental understanding of divinity, creation, and our actual purpose within it. Traditionally, we view creation as an act of will, a conscious choice, this optional gift from a creator. But this inverted model proposes creation as a mechanical necessity instead. In this view, the universe is an inevitable byproduct. It's structural exhaust. So the absolutely crucial point here is that this framework removes the burden of choice completely and replaces it with the profound dignity of mechanical necessity. The Mulu literally could not do otherwise. Now, I want to make sure you don't walk away from this thinking it's just some bleak, meaningless accident, because it's not. In fact, it highlights the absolute perfection of the leak. The universe exists because the Mulu could not do otherwise. And therefore, the Cesset, that leak we talked about, is not a flaw in the perfection of the Mulu at all. Only a truly perfect infinity could generate enough internal pressure to force a phase transition without the entire system just collapsing on itself. The leak is the ultimate sign that the system is working exactly as it should. Which leaves us with a final, really expansive question for you to ponder. If you are the flawless exhaust of a perfect infinity, how does that change your perspective on your place in the cosmos? It's an awe-inspiring, beautifully inverted way to view your own existence, right? You aren't here because of a random whim. You're here because the absolute fullness of infinity mechanically required you to be here. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this framework has given you a wonderfully complex, totally fascinating new lens to view reality through. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next one.